You're listening to Space in Between, where we pause the performance and get real about the messy, human stuff we are usually too afraid to say out loud. I'm Vesna, and I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to ask the uncomfortable questions together. This is the space in between right and wrong, certainty and doubt, who we've been and who we are becoming. Hit subscribe and let's dive in. I never planned to be in psychoeducation. I kind of fell into it. Mindfulness, coaching. But behind the calm voice, I was walking on eggshells. There was a rule book. Yeah, no thanks. I ask questions. I live in the gray zones. This is space in between. No fluff, no filters. Welcome. You're in the right place. I want you to imagine this. You're going through something rough. Maybe a breakup, burnout, or just a general feeling of being lost. You finally open up to someone about it. Someone deep into personal development. And the response is something like, everything happens for a reason. Just let it go. You're only suffering because you're holding on to the past. Raise your vibration, and this won't be an issue anymore. And for a moment, it sounds reassuring. You want to believe that if you just shift your mindset or focus on gratitude, the pain will disappear. But here's the problem. Your pain doesn't just go away. Instead, you start questioning yourself. Am I the problem? Am I not evolved enough? Maybe I just need to be more positive. This is spiritual bypassing in action. And let me tell you, I didn't just read about this, I lived it. As someone who has tried almost every personal development practice in search of fixing myself, inner child healing, breathwork, shadow work, journaling my soul out, you name it, I ended up in this exact trap. Instead of getting clarity, I found myself in rooms full of people nodding way too intensely, taking gentle breaths and softly placing their hands on their hearts while someone explained that my pain was just an illusion, that I just need to vibrate higher, meditate longer, release more, align my chakras harder. And of course, when it didn't work, I assumed it was my fault. I wasn't enlightened enough. I needed to try harder. Spoiler alert. The problem wasn't my chakras. Not saying they're perfect, but let's be real. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that I was being gaslit by people deep in spiritual bypassing, telling me that my very real human struggles weren't real at all. And I believed them. I worked even harder to fix myself instead of recognizing that some things don't need to be fixed. They need to be felt. So yeah, been there, done that, got the overpriced self-help book to prove it, and that's exactly why we need to talk about this. So I can vent out my frustrations, but also just maybe help you avoid falling into the same crap. Because this blurry space between pain and performance, healing and hiding, is exactly what space in between is all about. And if you feel triggered by this, you might want to stop listening now. It's only going to get worse. Feel free to come back in 6 months when you had your enlightenment breakthrough or whatever. But let's take a step back. What do we even mean by spiritual bypassing? So if this term is new to you, it was first introduced by John Welwood, a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist, who noticed that people were using spirituality as a way to avoid real painful emotions. So instead of actually feeling and working through grief, anger, or trauma, they would rise above it, using spirituality as a way to detach from their emotions rather than processing them. So signs of spiritual bypassing include minimizing emotions. Just let it go. Overemphasizing positivity. Focus on love and light. Blaming struggle on low vibrations, karma, or lack of alignment. So I know it sounds deep, very wise, and even comforting. But at its core, it's a way to avoid real healing. But let's be clear, not everything is spiritual bypassing. Using mindfulness, finding meaning in hardship, or choosing a positive outlook isn't the problem, unless it's being used to avoid reality. Healthy spirituality actually helps you process emotions, not suppress them. Spiritual bypassing is when spirituality becomes a quick fix, a way to dismiss pain instead of working through it. So, why does this work so damn well? Because it's the most elegant form of avoidance. It's not like binge watching Netflix to escape your problem. No, this is soul work. You're not avoiding your emotions, you're meditating through them. You're not suppressing your anger, you're choosing peace. You're not ignoring reality, you're just vibrating at a higher frequency. Translation, you're repressing the hell out of your emotions. But let's be real. Working through pain sucks. Sitting in discomfort sucks. But if you convince yourself that you don't need to feel it, that you've evolved past it, well, that's way more appealing. Until it catches up with you. Because it always does. So I want you to take a step back and look at this from a cultural and systemic perspective. Spiritual bypassing isn't just an individual issue. It's a tool that works perfectly in the world that thrives on inequality. Because when we are told that everything is a mindset problem, we stop questioning the structures that make life harder for some and easier for others. Struggling, you're just not in an alignment. Facing injustice, you attracted it to learn a lesson. Burned out, be more grateful. See what's happening. Instead of addressing real problems, exploitations, inequality, power imbalances, we are told to fix ourselves. And this is exactly how systems maintain themselves. Low wages, just manifest abundance. Overworked. You should set better intentions, not demand better conditions. Discrimination. Stop playing the victim. Raise your vibration. The more we believe that everything is on us, the less we demand change. And before someone says, because I know you're there, but personal responsibility matters. Yes, of course it does. But not everything is an individual problem. Some struggles are created by the systems we live in. No amount of positive thinking will fix systematic injustice. And spiritual bypassing, it just shifts the blame from systems onto individuals. So this is not just about self-help. It's about how we've been conditioned to accept the unacceptable. But it's not just the system that pushes this narrative. Many teachers, coaches, so-called healers, actively encourage it. Why? Because they're often trapped in the same cycle themselves. They're so convinced they've transcended struggle, accountability, and self-doubt. And when you believe you've evolved past difficult emotions, it's easy to dismiss them in others. Questioning them, they're just your ego resisting. And this is where spiritual bypassing and spiritual narcissism go hand in hand. Some of the very people preaching self-awareness are actually using it to shield themselves from any form of introspection. But to be honest, that's a whole other episode. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't an excuse to avoid personal development. Growth, healing, self-reflection matter. But being mindful of spiritual bypassing does not mean rejecting personal responsibility. It means balancing self-awareness with awareness of the bigger picture. So, how do we protect ourselves from falling into the trap of bypassing? Whether we're doing it ourselves or receiving it from others. The answers aren't black and white. They live in the tension between the space in between avoidance and awareness, between personal growth and systemic change. Emotions aren't something to be fixed. They're meant to be felt. Ignoring them in the name of spirituality only makes them louder. Not everything happens for a reason, and that is okay. Some things are just unfair or traumatic, and we don't need to force a lesson onto every painful experience. Being spiritual does not mean being numb. True growth comes from processing pain, not avoiding it. Next time someone says, just stay positive when you're struggling, ask yourself, is this actually helpful or just a way to avoid the real issue? Next time, we're peeling back another layer of the performance. We're talking about cancel culture. When calling someone out becomes more about shame than growth. Is it justice? Or is it just another performance? Is it accountability? Or a new way to avoid our own mess? You won't want to miss this one. Make sure to subscribe and bring your contradictions. But before you go, have you ever been on the receiving end of spiritual bypassing? What's the most unhelpful wisdom someone thrown at you while you were struggling? Drop a comment and let's get into it. For real. So that's it for today's episode of Space in Between. If you felt yourself sitting in that tension, good. Actually, great. That's the point. We're not here to escape it. We're here to sit in the space in between and learn to listen to what it's actually telling us. If I made something shift in you or made you want to burn a few self-help books, same. Share it with someone who is tired of pretending they can meditate their way out of real life. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time in the space where healing stops performing and starts getting honest. Stay uncomfortable.